Hello and welcome to Business Lunch on this Monday afternoon. I'm Nisha Poddar and with me is Sonia Shenoy today on the show. But let's begin with the auto sector. Remember, the first trading day of the month is always important for it. So Maruti reported a strong set of sales for the month of September as the domestic sales and exports both show strong growth for the company. In fact, Sonia got in touch with Shashank Srivastav, who's the ED of Sales and Marketing at Maruti, to really understand how the sales were really likely to pan out going forward. Listen in.
The retail is actually just a little lower than the wholesale, and that's expected because of the buildup of stocks that normally you have just before the festive season. So in the industry, the wholesale numbers were at a record high. This is the highest ever monthly dispatches in Indian auto industry ever, 356,000. The retail estimated is around 339,000. So it's a little less. Also, Sonia, in the last 6 months, the wholesale have been higher than retail. And that has led also to a little bit of buildup of stock. 1st April, stock in the industry was about 119,000 and has gone up to almost 238,000 by the current estimates. So yes, a little buildup of stock, but during the festive season, I think we can expect a very good retail, especially when pending bookings are also pretty high.
Okay, very good retail is expected in the festive season. I was talking to the management of M&M and they mentioned to me that higher inflation, higher interest rates could perhaps dampen demand in the months to come. Is that your fear as well? And if yes, which are the pockets that could get hit?
Yes, so actually, if you look at the pending bookings for Maruti itself, for today it's around 412,000 and in the industry estimated to be 800,000. That is one of the reasons why, with the increased production, we have not really felt the difference or the change in the market condition. But I think what we need to measure now is the inflow of fresh bookings rather than the total bookings itself. And there we'll get to know once the production becomes completely normal. And that is expected in a few months' time. We will get to know then what exactly is the market condition. But you are right, in our last interaction, we had also flagged a couple of red flags, to watch for. One of them was inflation and the overall economic growth and the consumer sentiment, which is related to it. Since car buying is a discretionary purchase, sentiments play a large role. And yes, so that is one of the areas we are also a little apprehensive about, but we'll have to wait and watch. And certainly the effect of that would be felt with a lag of at least 2 or 3 months.
So overall, Mr. Srivastava, what kind of reasonable growth do you see for the passenger vehicle industry by the end of this fiscal?
So by the end of this fiscal, the estimates are about 3.8 million against 3.07 million that we saw last year. So that's a pretty strong growth. In fact, if you see H1, Sonia, H1, the figure for the industry is a record 1.937 million, which was 1.387 million last year. That's a growth of about 40% in H1. Clearly, of course, H1 of last year was a little bit affected because of Q1 being affected by the COVID. But overall, I think 3.8 million is the expectation now for the whole fiscal year against 3.07 million. That's a pretty good growth, I would say.
Okay. The response to the Brezza and the Vitara has been pretty good so far. Just wanted to understand a little bit about how the SUV space is shaping up, considering that, it'll be a while before you sort of get your SUV market share up and running. But what is the situation on the ground currently and what are the expectations over the next few months?
I think the trend for greater consumer proclivity to buy SUVs continues. In the month of September, we saw almost 43% of the market being SUV. And that obviously was held by the new Brezza as well as the Grand Vitara. The Brezza for the entry SUV segment is doing very well. In fact, Brezza last month also was the highest selling SUV, about more than 15,000 units. In fact, the number 3 model in the industry overall. first being Alto. So Brezza has been doing very well. The mid SUV, you are right, we have just started with the Grand Vitara. We had a wholesale of almost 4,800 units this month. That's also pretty large, I would say. But we are just beginning, and as we ramp up production, we hope to get larger volumes from the SUV space and hence a larger market share as well.
So what has this done for your overall market share? What does the market share stand at now? And what was it, say, about 6 months ago?
So it's gone up. It's started climbing up again. We are close to 43% now, as against actually last year, September was bad, but we had been in that range of 40.5 for most of the year thus far. Of course, it's not just the SUVs. We also had constraints of production, as you know. Obviously, every OEM had it, but we had a little bit more because of the wide portfolio that we have. And as a result, even today, we are not able to produce all the vehicles that we want. But having said that, yes, I would expect the market share to go up, especially if our SUVs continue to do well, as it looks like.
Okay. Are all the supply side issues behind us now? Because, the word from the other passenger vehicle makers like M&M is that this is still an ongoing challenge and it will take a while, maybe 3 or 4 months before all the supply side issues are, over and done with. How is the situation at your end?
Semiconductor supplies have been getting better, but I have also been mentioning, Sonia, that it also depends on a lot on what type of vehicle you are able to produce. So there are also a side-by-side, the pending bookings, 412,000 for Maruti Suzuki that I mentioned. Now, that is because we have not been able to produce vehicles exactly as per the underlying demand pattern. As a result, some models have a very low waiting period or no waiting period, and others have a very large waiting period. And that's the issue which can go away only when the semiconductor issue is fully solved. I would say it's around that 94-95% mark that we have solved that issue. And going forward, I agree with the M&M when they said it's going to take a few more months before we can be 100%, saying that we can produce whatever we want.
Okay, that's the word coming in from Maruti. The stock is under pressure. There's some profit taking across the auto space today. But Maruti is saying that yes, this month's numbers are looking good, but there are some headwinds, some red flags like higher inflation, higher interest rates that perhaps could dampen demand. We'll get into a quick break on that note. When we come back, we'll get you details from the much-awaited launch of 5G services which kicked off on Saturday. Stay tuned for that.